A woman returned a library book and vanished from every memory, photo, and file. Her own mother couldn't remember she existed. This is the story of a cursed library buried in an abandoned New York borough where opening the wrong book doesn't kill you, it replaces you. You'll hear about the one book that writes over people's lives and the chilling reason it might be waiting for you. If a library could rewrite history, your history, what title would it started with a woman who returned a library book and was never seen again? Surveillance footage showed her walking into the building just after 3:17 p.m. But no footage ever showed her leave. No one at home remembered her name. Her toothbrush was gone. So were the photos on her family's fridge. Authorities tried to track her identity, only to find 0 records. No birth certificate, no social, not even a hospital file. Reality doesn't just misplace people. Something removed her. Her mother, confused and terrified, began asking, "Did I ever have a daughter?" And then, weeks later, she disappeared too. No one's been officially employed there in over 30 years. The payroll records ended in 1994. Yet somehow, the doors remain unlocked every Sunday. The lights flicker on. The floors are swept. Books are always organized alphabetically and thematically. Locals call it the quiet place, but no one ever sees anyone working inside. No librarian, no janitor, no front desk. But the books change. New ones appear. Old ones vanish. One man claimed he left his coffee mug behind on a dusty table. When he returned the next day, it was clean, warm, and full. And his name was now listed on a shelf labeled Borrowed Lives. They don't have titles, just blank red covers bound in what looks like soft leather. Some say the texture feels warm. Others swear they pulse like a slow heartbeat. But what makes them dangerous isn't how they feel. It's what's inside. Every red book contains handwritten entries, names, descriptions, entire lives, sometimes written in languages the reader doesn't speak, until they suddenly can. Teenagers say they found books that list their own family members. One opened a red book titled, "Before He Was My Brother." The next day, he was an only child. His mother didn't even flinch. The books didn't just document lives. They erased them and rewrote who mattered. They call him Noah, though he doesn't remember if that's his real name. He's the only person known to have visited the library repeatedly and left unchanged. Or so he thought. Noah claims he never opened a red book. He just walked the aisles. But the place spoke to him. Not through voices, through titles. They rearranged themselves into sentences. One shelf once read, "You were never real, Noah." He says the fiction section always whispers, and sometimes the whisper uses your voice. Now he doesn't sleep. Not because he's scared, because he's afraid he'll wake up somewhere else. "I'm not sure I'm even from here," he told reporters. "What if I'm just a draft?" In 1992, an electrical fire tore through the east wing of the library, specifically the nonfiction and history section. Witnesses say the flames reached 20 feet and the smoke was blacker than night. Yet when fire crews broke through the front doors, that wing was gone. Weeks later, curious urban explorers returned. Not only was the wing back, it was pristine. Restored. But the books were wrong. Titles like "The Year America Was Erased" or "The War That Didn't Happen" lined the shelves. None of the titles exist in any known database. And the fireproof safe that held original documents? It was empty except for one red book that read version 3. Every red book follows the same unspoken rules. Rule 1, you don't find them, they find you. Rule 2, once you open one, the story inside starts to overwrite reality even if you stop reading. Rule 3, you can't burn them. Believe me, they've tried. One former detective obsessed with the case placed 6 red books in an incinerator. The next morning, his garage had burned to the ground, but the books were neatly stacked on his doorstep, completely intact. Some say the books are self-aware. Others believe they're not books at all, but living documents, parasites made of memory. They don't just tell stories, they absorb them. A local priest once whispered, "They don't write to inform, they write to replace." The final rule, never read your own name. If you do, it's already too late. In 2004, a woman filed a missing persons report for her 2 children, ages 6 and 8. The report was processed. A search was launched, but 3 days later, the case was closed. Not because they were found, but because the children never existed. The woman returned to the station screaming. She had photos, clothes, toys, but the toys had no names. The photos were blank, just her, smiling into empty space. Hospital records, birth certificates, school files, all gone. Even her neighbors claimed she had always lived alone. A red book was found under her bed. It was titled When I Was a Mother. That book is now locked in an evidence vault, but no one knows who put it there. A dusty yearbook from 1979 was found in the library's basement, perfectly preserved despite the mold and rot around it. But none of the students inside existed in any state record. No school, no census match, no graves, just page after page of names and empty silhouettes. A former teacher, now elderly, swore he remembered the students. He could describe their faces, their laughter, their futures. But when he was shown the yearbook, he broke down. "This isn't how I remember them," he whispered. They weren't blank. The next day, he vanished from his retirement home. His nameplate was removed. Staff said there was no record of him ever living there. Even his family couldn't recall him. Investigators returned to the library, but the yearbook was gone. In its place was a single red book titled We Taught Ourselves. It contained lesson plans handwritten by students no one remembers. And on the final page, one phrase repeated again and again: erase the teacher. Keep the story. In 2011, a 12-year-old boy named Devin walked into the library alone. According to his mother, he was supposed to be at baseball practice, but he was fascinated by urban legends and wanted to find a red book for himself. He found one titled The Last Reader and tucked it under his coat to bring home. But as soon as he crossed the library threshold, he collapsed. When medics arrived, he was unconscious and holding nothing. No book, no ID, no name tag on his uniform. The hospital listed him as John Doe. His own mother visited and said, "That's not my son." Devin never woke up, but someone who looked like him returned to the library a week later and walked inside without a sound. In 2015, a man named Lewis began showing up every Monday at 6 a.m. to clean the library. He wore a dusty uniform with no logo and carried a ring of rusted keys. When asked who hired him, he simply said, "I've always worked here." Town officials eventually investigated. There were no records of his employment, no tax ID, no social security, but the floors, spotless, the books, always in place. They tried to remove him once. The next day, everyone involved in the decision forgot who he was. A week later, he was back, mopping quietly beside a shelf labeled Recurring Roles. Some say Lewis isn't a janitor. He's a character the library wrote into the building. Her name was Mila, and she wasn't afraid of the red books. She believed if the library could erase lives, maybe it could also restore them. So she brought a pen. A real one. She found a red book titled The Girl Who Lost Everyone. And inside, her parents' names were already written. Her friends, her cat. Page by page, every person she loved, all forgotten in real life. So Mila started writing. She scribbled furiously into the blank spaces, rewriting her family back into existence. And for a moment, it worked. Her mother called. Her brother texted. Then the ink hears the continuation and completion of Block 11, the girl who wrote her own ending. Then the ink bled. Her handwriting melted into the page, rearranged, rewritten, redacted. Her words changed before her eyes. The phone calls stopped. The messages deleted themselves mid-sentence. Mila opened the book again and found one final line etched in red. "You don't write the story writes you." No one's seen Mila since. But a new red book appeared last month, titled She Tried. Still warm to the touch, and her pen is inside it, melted into the spine like a fossil. Tucked behind the philosophy shelves is a corridor no one recalls being there last time. Faint gold letters above the archway read, Author Archives. But there's no list of writers, no Dewey Decimal numbers, only shelves lined with manuscripts written in your own handwriting. One visitor opened a folder labeled Drafts of Me. Inside, a full account of his life, including moments he'd never told anyone. The last line read, He paused before turning the page. He dropped it, looked up. The corridor was gone. Another woman found stories she hadn't lived yet, one ending in her own funeral. She never told anyone what else she read. But the next week, she changed her name. Some say the most dangerous red book isn't one that rewrites your past, but one that waits for your future. It has no title, no pages, no ink, just a blank red cover and a pressure like it's watching. One visitor, a skeptical professor, mocked it, called it performance art. He flipped through the empty pages, laughing until the final one. There, in faint, rising ink, was the sentence. He never left. His colleagues say he was last seen walking out of the library, but surveillance shows no such footage. The book remains blank, but now it smells like his cologne, and each time someone opens it, a new page appears. Tucked between languages and folklore is a short, crooked shelf locals call the whisper shelf. The books on it don't have titles, only spines that shimmer slightly when you get close. No one's ever managed to pull one out, but if you lean in, they speak. Not out loud, but in your own thoughts. They remind you of things you never told anyone. Regrets, secrets. Some even apologize in your voice. One woman claimed the shelf whispered, "We didn't mean to take your sister. She read too quickly. She never had a sister. Or maybe she did. Since then, she visits once a month, hoping to remember who she forgot." Flyers have appeared across town over the years. Quiet volunteers needed, help preserve forgotten stories. There's a phone number, but it never rings. And the return address? Just says basement, special collections. A college student followed the flyer once, just for fun. He found a service entrance unlocked, leading into the library's sublevel. No lights, just shelves and humming. Weeks later, his roommate received a postcard in the mail, a drawing of the student wearing a name tag that said cataloged. No return address. The flyers still show up, but now they're written in his handwriting. And every time someone tears one down, a new one appears somewhere closer to their home. There's a rumor among obsessive readers of the red books. A boy shows up in all of them, not always named. Sometimes he's just the neighbor, or the quiet kid, but the description is always the same. Freckles, mismatched eyes, and a yellow jacket. In one story, he helps a girl find her missing dog. In another, he hands someone a map that leads to their own grave. Researchers began comparing recovered red books, and the boy was in all of them, even centuries-old ones written in dead languages. They call him the placeholder. But one scholar had a darker theory: he's not in the stories. He's the author trying to remember himself. Last winter, a book was left in the library's return drop, wrapped in cloth, sealed with wax, and stamped overdue. The problem? The barcode didn't match any known system. The title? The archive of who we were. Inside were short entries. Names, ages, tiny life summaries. Margot, 43, loved daffodils. Eli, 9, afraid of thunder. Hundreds of them, but no surnames, no origins. As investigators flipped through it, one whispered, "Wait, I know this handwriting." It matched their own journal. The final page said, "Return completed, writer forgotten." And now the officer who handled the book, gone. Her desk sits empty, badge and pen untouched. Deep in the center of the library is a display case no one remembers installing. Inside rests a single red book, open, pen beside it, ink still wet. Every day, new words appear. Slowly, line by line. And every line describes someone currently reading about the library. One entry read, "She leaned forward, unsure whether to believe any of this until her phone buzzed." The woman reading it dropped the book when her phone did buzz. From a blocked number. The next line appeared immediately. "She looked too late. The book is still writing. Right now. And it knows who you are." There's only one blank space left, waiting for the reader's name. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You're already part of the story. Comment "I remember" below to prove you're still here before the library decides otherwise. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and stay close. Some entries are only visible to returning readers. They called him the historian, a researcher obsessed with the red books. He mapped every recovered title, date, and eyewitness account into a sprawling web of evidence. He believed that if he could read all of them, he could outsmart the library, reconstruct the original timeline. But one day, he found a red book titled The One Who Knew Too Much. Inside was his own research, every diagram, every note. The final page read. He realized it too late. The next morning, his apartment was vacant. Walls white, files gone, rent records scrubbed. The only trace left was a sticky note on his desk. Do not read this. Experts who've analyzed the red books agree on one thing. The ink isn't normal. Under microscopes, it moves. It reshapes itself depending on who's reading. In one test, a page read the twins drowned until a man with no siblings picked it up. Then it changed to the silence never ended. One forensic analyst cut a sample out of a page to test chemically. That night, she woke up with her hands stained red. It wouldn't wash off for 6 days. And on her arm, in the same script as the book, was one line, "Return what you took." Since then, she's refused to speak publicly and wears gloves at all times. In 2018, security footage caught a man entering the library at 2:43 a.m., even though it was locked and fully alarmed. He walked straight to a red book, flipped to the middle, and smiled. When authorities reviewed the tape, there was no record of him entering. No door opening. Just appearing. Facial recognition returned nothing. No matches globally. No fingerprints. But inside the book he opened was a detailed account of his visit, timestamped 2 days in the future. The final line read, "He left exactly when you blinked." And when investigators blinked reviewing the footage, he was gone. A teenager named Alex once dared his friends to call his cell phone while he was inside the library, just to prove he wasn't scared. He wandered toward the fiction section, phone in hand. They dialed. He didn't answer, but someone picked up. A faint static crackled through, then breathing. Then a voice whispered, "He's not your friend anymore. He's ours." When the friends ran in, Alex was standing in the aisle smiling, but he didn't recognize them. His contacts were wiped. His phone history gone. He now works part-time at a bookstore downtown, where all the books are blank and he only shelves the red ones. There's one row, buried in the back corner, filled with books written in scripts no living linguist can identify. Some resemble ancient alphabets. Others look like twisted musical notes or fractal patterns. But readers say something terrifying. They understand them while reading and forget how afterward. One woman spoke aloud from one of the books for 37 seconds. Her nose bled. Her voice changed. And afterward, she couldn't remember her name, but she remembered the books. It was titled Translation Costs Something. Since then, anyone who's heard even one sentence from those books reports similar symptoms: lost memories, changed handwriting, and a recurring dream of screaming pages. Decades ago, the library issued physical cards. Most were lost, discarded, or burned when the system was supposedly decommissioned. But one card remains, holder unknown. It's made of thick ivory stock, completely blank, except for a date that keeps changing. The town clerk once found it in her mailbox. The date said tomorrow. She left it on her desk overnight. The next morning, the date read today. The following morning, yesterday. Then it vanished. So did her shadow. People say the card chooses its bearer, and the date is a countdown. Not to death, but to being written over by someone else's story. So what is this place? A haunted archive? A sentient author? Or something older? Something that doesn't just collect stories. It edits reality? The truth is, once you hear about the library, you've already been filed under curious. Maybe you've never visited, or maybe you already did, and you just don't remember. And if a red book ever shows up with your name on the spine, whatever you do, don't read the ending. New entries are added every week. Stick around because next time, the story might read you.